There is no doubt the Buckeyes are working hard, and you will see them on display, of course, in Columbus in just a few weeks. We appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football for Buckeyes Live number 311. We got, of course, Steve Hellwagon right next to me from Bucknuts 247 Sports, and down below we got Tony Erdman. BuckeyeHuddle.com is the place to be to catch Tony's written work, and then, of course, the Buckeye Weekly podcast is a good destination for Tony's quips and Ohio State football talk right there. Gentlemen, how we doing today?
Doing great.
Doing well.
Comments or questions are welcome. We appreciate your contributions. Obviously, if you can't do it financially, we totally understand. But if you're able to contribute to the show, understand that these guys are professionals. They give us their time each and every week. So we appreciate your contributions. Steve, you checked out practice on Saturday, and then Ryan Day spoke with the media on Monday. What are your initial impressions?
Well, the practice on Saturday was actually closed. There were about 300 onlookers there, though, a lot of high school coaches and friends of ours, basically, friends of the program, friends of ours. And so we got a few observations and tidbits here and there. People want to know about the quarterback position. And to be very honest, this was exactly what I was told, that Julian Sand did struggle at times. And as one of the people that we talked to said, it seemed like he was running laps a lot for making mistakes or turning the ball over or, mishandling a snap or a handoff or something. Lincoln Keenholz did a pretty good job, they thought. Tavian St. Clair was his head was swimming. It was a very difficult day for him as well as a true freshman in there trying to move the ball. But they said there wasn't a lot of downfield stuff, so there were a lot of checkoffs and check downs, which you'd expect. Great coverage from the cornerbacks. One play in particular, everyone loves Davis Igbinosun because, he eventually gets the job done at cornerback. Getting from point A to point B might be a little rocky sometimes, might be a little handsy, could have a yellow flag or two, but generally it ends without a lot of points scored. And that was the case the other day. He got beat deep by Mylan Graham, but used his great recovery speed to knock the ball away and then let everybody in the building know about it. And that was one of the highlights. One of our people thought of the scrimmage that he isn't going to change. He is going to get beat. He is going to recover, and then he's going to let everybody know about it. So that's IGB. Never change IGB. So there you go. We got him. You can count on him. Talking to the people yesterday, Tim Walton said he thinks Jermaine Matthews and Lorenzo Styles Jr. have really stepped up to earn starting roles. And then you think about their backups for a minute. Devin Sanchez, the true freshman who's there now, as well as the two guys who were in last year, Aaron Scott and Bryce West. Those three guys probably have more upside than the starters in terms of how long they could play in the NFL or how great they could be as college players. So, Sanchez is like 6'1". He's a huge corner. So a lot of good things to look at there. I'll just wrap up what else I heard. Bo Jackson, the freshman running back, really looks the part. And when they ran the ball with him, it was generally a good play. When they ran the ball with some of the other guys, it was not necessarily always a great play. And what else? Pass rush was not all that great, as you'd expect when you take Tui Maloau and Sawyer out of the mix. You got some other people in there. Mylan Graham looked good. Carnell Tate looked good. That was probably about the long and the short of what I got out of it.
Yeah, Mylan Graham is a name that we keep hearing all the time. It's interesting from the Saturday scrimmage, and then yesterday I was talking with somebody that was at practice, and it was almost like the opposite. Like today, Julian Sand was good. Lincoln Keenholz threw a couple of interceptions, and that's just the nature of of spring football, where sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, and really that'll go into camp. And sometimes you'll have a good day, sometimes you'll have a bad day. And everybody remembers in 2023 where fall camp, you hear for like a week that Devin Brown is in the lead, and then Kyle McCord closes out strong and he wins the job. So, the up and down nature of it is going to be difficult because these guys haven't played before. So you get the mistakes out now, you learn from them, and you move on. If you keep making them, then you're not going to win the job. And so I think we did a podcast episode a couple days ago after the reports coming out of the scrimmage about how Julian Sain struggled, and was like, is it too soon to panic about the quarterback situation? And yes, it is too soon to panic about the quarterback situation, because when Ryan Day puts a bad quarterback out on the field, that'll be the first time he does it.
Yeah, the last go around of interviews on the offensive side of the ball, the thing that I heard out of you guys, and then also in reviewing the interviews that seemed to be to the surface more than anything, was there's a long way to go. There's a long, long way to go. We just started. We just got going on this. There's a long way to go. Now, taking Steve's tidbits from Saturday and expanding on that, not blowing it out of proportion that Julian Sain's struggling, but if this continues, if there's Lincoln Keenholz and there's an evaluation of an offense that has the best playmakers in the conference, and that if you just simply check the ball down, make this throw to, now they've got one of the best tight ends in the nation coming in from Purdue, et cetera, with all the playmakers, what is that balance of ceiling and skill and escapability out of the quarterback position versus just doing the job and throwing to the right guy?
Ryan Day wants his quarterbacks to do the routine thing routinely. That's all you got to do. You just be a distributor. Once you get rid of the ball, your job is done. Like, everybody else will do 80% of the battle for you if you just get the ball to the right guys. And checkdowns are fine. A throwaway is fine. That was something that Howard excelled at. Do the routine things routinely. And then as the season went on, he was able to do more and more and more until he was arguably the second best player on the field by the end of the season, or best player on the field in that Texas game, maybe. So, yeah, it's a process. And, I don't think you expect anybody to look great at quarterback early in spring, because it's all still a mishmash of offensive lines, of receivers. You see people criticized at the pro or at the combine, the quarterbacks, well, they're not throwing to their receivers. It's like, well, sometimes Julian Sain is throwing to a walk-on. Sometimes he's throwing to, Marlon Graham. He's not necessarily throwing to Jeremiah Smith much, because there's no reason for him to be out there. So you'll have some issues. And then also you are throwing against a defense in a secondary that is trying to get on the field. Like Devin Sanchez, Aaron Scott are trying to make sure that they can get on the field this year. So, like, nobody on the defensive side of things is taking things easy. Not that the offense is, but there are a lot of things working against a quarterback in the spring, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, again, they're just trying to get all these guys as many reps as they can and see who can handle the difficulty that goes along with it, and everything else. I mean, this is what it's going to be times 4 when you get into a game in the fall. So this should be easy compared to, what could happen in the fall in some of these big time games. So they need to see which of these guys is going to step up and rise to the occasion. And, I've believed all along that they're going to be fine. It's just define fine. Is fine 10-2? Is fine 12-0? For a lot of you people, 12-0 is all that matters. And you might be a little disappointed this year. I don't know.
Go 10-2. And in this day and age, I hate to say it, I wouldn't have said it 5 years ago, but if you win the Big Ten championship, great. If you don't, fine. Be a 6 seed, be an 8 seed. That sounds familiar. Whatever. Get into the playoff at 10-2. And then kick it into gear and coach toward that trajectory. Get that team ready and rolling, well, I guess past November, December. It's just a different deal.
It is. It's different than anything we grew up with, no doubt.
It's the NFL.
And you might get Penn State's road, so yeah. Get in, and you might get that easy road until
Right
you
into
meet
the
up with
Final
somebody.
Four.
Exactly.
Or you
Right
might
until
get the
until
toughest
you get
road
out
and
coached
still
by
be able to,
Marcus Freeman.
yeah. Or you might get the toughest road and still be able to just win your way through it.
Hey, that helps too.
It's kind of my thought at the beginning of the playoff, and this was not unique to me. That wow, they got the toughest road.
Mhm.
Man, that's a tough road, but I know they could play it through it. It doesn't look like they have that mindset right this second, but I know they can do it. Well, they went out and did it. And for Will Howard,
or you can win all of your games, be the number 1 seed, and be an underdog in the Rose Bowl in your first playoff game.
yeah, it is a different deal. We've seen all those 6 seeds in the NFL playoffs win over the last 20 years. It happens, and it's going to be this sport going forward, apparently, or at least they're going to have that opportunity.
How long?
Much as a 1 or 2.
How long is just making the playoffs good enough? Does that become the new 9 wins? Just making the playoffs if you don't do anything in it?
As Ohio State,
as a Penn State, as as anybody, like does making the playoffs save your job if you're the coach?
I think Ohio State needs to make the playoffs almost every year. Obviously, that's going to be an impossibility. At some time, they're going to miss a playoff, but basically, you need to make the playoff every year. If you're at Penn State, I think you make it 3 out of 5 years. I think they would be satisfied with that.
Unless it's 2 years in a row that you don't.
Well,
yeah, there's going to be a lot of knee-jerk reactions, as you see with NCAA basketball. You miss the postseason, you're gone. You're just gone. We got to start over. And, man, starting over is difficult. I'm trying to track Ohio State basketball kind of in a little bit of a reset. And it's so far, it's not going all that great. So imagine trying to do that with trying to hire 80 new football players. So, yeah, it's difficult.
Did I hear right that Indiana has no basketball players right now on their team?
Yeah, as of right now, they don't have any players. Hopefully, Damian DeVries, the new coach there, will be able to entice some of the players they had who were halfway decent to come back. But, as of right now, it's a bare cupboard.
Yeah, talk about clean slate. There you go. And I think to the earlier point, then there are programs like Texas A&M and South Carolina where, okay, let's get to a playoff now. We have hope. Let's get to one in the next 5 years. So,
and then that kind of like resets the clock on the coach. Like, okay, you've made it. Now you've got a little bit of time. At Ohio State, you have to win it all. That gives you a little bit of time. At Texas A&M, you just got to make it. That gives you a little bit of time.
A&M wasn't that far out this past year. Maybe another couple of wins they would have had. If they beat Texas, I think they would have gone to the championship game, wouldn't they?
yes.
And they just missed out a couple times in the 4-team playoffs. So like they've been close, which I don't know if that's better or worse if you're close to not making it consistently and constantly. But now they've got new coaching staff, relatively new, so there's a long clock working there.
You guys also had an opportunity to hear from the best in America, Tim Walton and his crew. And I got to say, he said all the typical things about he did talk about moving these guys around and then playing in different positions. I thought that was good. And then also Devin Sanchez. And of course, Tony, I appreciate you pointing his interview out because Devin Sanchez, what I was impressed with, in addition to him just being able to explain things and not give 1 and 2 word answers, is that he takes full responsibility and accountability despite his age and despite his class rank, that he wants to be the best on the roster and he's competing against the best in the nation and still wants to win those battles. And that's what's expected to contribute immediately.
Yeah, I was very impressed with him. And just as you said, I was talking with another writer afterwards, and I'm like, he is the most confident guy, one of the most confident people you'll ever talk to, but also he understands that if he doesn't win a job, it's his fault. It's nobody else's fault. Like when you talk about that, he takes full responsibility for any kind of failing that he would have. And he even talked about, well, people expect you to just come in and start. He's like, there's IGB and there's Jermaine Matthews ahead of me. Like, so they're going to play. I'm going to do my best to get in there as well. But also, you love the fact that he says, if there's a competition going on, there's a job out there to be won. If I'm going to compete at it, like I'm going to go, I'm going out there to win it. And if you just keep competing at your best, then you will win it. And if you don't, then, somebody else was better. And I just really, really mature guy for an 18-year-old who was very impressed with. And we'll pick up the mantle as one of the better talkers on the team. Just go ahead and throw him out there every time for us. And we'll make do with that. But, he's going to play this year, but the starting corners are set. Davis Igbinosun and Jermaine Matthews are set, and Tim Walton loves Jermaine Matthews. The question here is, can Aaron Scott or Devin Sanchez do what Jermaine Matthews did last year and just force his way into the lineup? Because last year it was Igbinosun and Denzel Burke. Those were your starters. Jermaine Matthews worked his way into the rotation because they had to. They couldn't just – he was good enough to play. And so that's the task for Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez this year, is to become that third guy. And, Kerry Combs always tried to have a 3-man rotation. His ultimate dream was, other than having a good Ohio State defense as a defense coordinator, which did not happen, his ultimate dream was to have a 4-man starting rotation at corner, and he could never quite get there. And I'm not saying they're going to get there this year, but there are a lot of teams out there that wouldn't mind starting Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez this year as their 2 corners.
Yeah, I think you got to be pretty pleased with the back 5 there on defense. We did not get a chance to talk to Igbinosun or Jermaine Matthews, but they don't lack for confidence, either one of them, and that's what you need: confidence and a short memory when you're playing the cornerback position. And those guys do a great job. At the end of the day, they do a pretty good job. So I think you're looking for big things. And obviously, you got Caleb Downs coming back at safety. He's tremendous as well, All-American. And Malik Hartford, it sounds like, or Jalen McLean, kind of battling it out, there at the other safety spot. And we'll have to see what materializes there.
And I believe Scott and West were in the same recruiting class. And then you got Sanchez in this recruiting class. And that West-Scott class, they may have lost somebody that got flipped out of that class. But at one point, they had like 3 of the top 4 corners in the nation.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Class.
Well, and even in this past one with the Devin Sanchez, they also had Naeem Alford was like the number 2 corner who was committed and then ended up signing with Oregon. I think in the 2025 class, I think they, had 2 corners that decommitted, but they kind of have that almost every year. They'll have 4, 5, 6 decommitments every year. Some of those are bullets that were dodged, frankly.
Offered, allegedly, somebody said Oregon, Nike are going to make a shoe for him. And on the floor of the Rose Bowl, after the Buckeyes routed Oregon, one of the Ohio State players, they ain't make no shoe for you, bro. One of those kind of exclamations. They ain't making no shoe for you.
Yeah.
It's all fair in love and war and recruiting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is now. All's legal.
Yep.
And as Devin Sanchez was saying, he doesn't necessarily talk more than anybody else in the room, but he's also going to let you know about it. That's just part of the game, and especially on the outside there with the wide receivers and the DBs.
Yeah, you got to have confidence, you got to have amnesia, and you got to be able to talk, basically. And that's communication and also trash talk, basically. And I also like the part where Devin Sanchez is talking about how the most important lesson he's learned is you got to compete every day. And he talked about how he was always winning his individual competitions, but it was against other freshmen. And then they had him compete against the rest of the team. And then he finally lost one of those competitions to IGB, and IGB told him about it. Let him hear about it. So even the corners even talk trash to themselves. It's just within their nature.
I don't know if this is standard practice out there, but it sounded like that they formed a team of freshmen, and then they had individual matchups with the veteran players, but they kind of kept track of all the freshmen together as a unit, taking on the veterans and throwing them out, into the fire, expecting they're going to fail. That's what would normally happen, especially at a place like this. But still holding them to the standard that you got to win these one-on-one battles.
Yeah, and I like the part where he said that in high school if you lose, whatever. In college if you lose, the coaches are watching you and they're watching to see how you respond to it. And like everybody's watching to see how you respond to it because you have a vital role in this team because you're one of 85, one of 105. Like they can't be wasting their time or that spot on you. So you've got to step up for everybody and you've got to be able to respond and apply and win the next one. And so it's really interesting the way they develop that competition in the winter and then again in the summer workouts. But yeah, the way I view it is like they've got these freshmen, they're in a pod. Like if it's like a zoo and it's like all of these the babies, and then they finally let them out to the adults, and because you don't want to let them out there right away, and then finally they're able to be incorporated into the rest of the team, and you see how they've you don't want anybody to sink, but also it's going to be choppy out there, so have fun while you're trying.
Absolutely. And then if you put together not necessarily one response from Devin Sanchez, but just kind of piece together a number of responses, it sounded like he really wanted to get away from home because he just thought he was going to grow up faster and that it was going to be a challenge to be in an unfamiliar place, unfamiliar setting, challenged by just a change in life.
Yeah, sometimes that's what guys want, is to start fending for themselves and to realize they have to rely on themselves and only themselves to get through the tough times. And I think that's very important. I think for young people to come about that realization and want that kind of independence and be trusted to be able to handle themselves away from home. So, we see a lot of grown men come out of this program, and that's what the coaches and everybody there pride themselves in, is they take these guys and mold them, and generally the finished product's pretty good.
We've got an Ohio State Primetime Live show that comes your way right here on this here channel, Monday and Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Tony, when's your next podcast coming out, or your latest edition that just came out?
We did one yesterday after practice talking about interviews with the DBs. We'll have another one today or tomorrow. If it's tomorrow, I'll probably be talking about the O-line because that's who we're talking to tomorrow. So you can find that. Just search Buckeye Weekly Podcast and you'll find it.
What is the focus on Buckeye Huddle these days as well?
Recapping and writing the stories from the interviews. I'm actually working on a Devin Sanchez story for this afternoon, so you can find that at buckeyehuddle.com. Yesterday posted just a pretty complete rundown of what the coaches had to say to get you up to date on what was asked and what was said from Matt Guerrieri and Tim Walton.
I was in the process of pulling up our Instagram feed at the Voice of College Football that we launched maybe about 6 weeks ago. The first example would not have been the best. It was a bit of a April Fool's joke, so not necessarily the best example of what we do on a daily basis, but our guys Gabe and Patrick are doing a heck of a job with the Instagram and the Twitter, and we see the latest posting there, Florida football. So check it out. If you're on Instagram, you might as well follow us on the Voice of College Football, the VOCFB. It's some really good stuff. They post at least twice a day there. All right. The Black Stripes are coming off. Max Clare, I saw his name. I saw a few other names. No big surprise. Tony, does Ryan Day take this as seriously as Urban Meyer and other coaches?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so. There will probably be people that tell you maybe Ryan Day is a little more lax with it, like it's maybe easier, but that I would just base that on the number of freshmen who have lost it in the spring over the years under Day compared to Meyer. But we're still waiting on our first true freshman to lose his black stripe. We've seen, as you said, Max Clare and a couple of redshirt freshmen in Nickelback, Miles Lockhart, and defensive end Dominic Kirks. So the first true freshman, we're waiting on that one. It doesn't happen every spring, but you've had one scrimmage, and that's where some things start to happen. Then we'll have the Student Appreciation Day on Saturday, which is like another scrimmage, and they'll be scrimmaging to that. And so maybe towards after that, in the next couple of weeks, we'll see if any of the true freshmen can get in there and lose that black stripe. But yeah, it's very serious. And when you talk to players about it, they'll tell you, like, I want to get rid of it, and when they have it, what it means to them, and what it means to, like, their big brothers who are there and are part of it. And like, you see the videos every time they do one, the entire team erupts and then like the position group even more so, so yeah, it's still a very big deal, and we'll continue on. I don't see it ending anytime soon.
Yeah, we haven't seen any of the freshmen yet, which is interesting. Miles Lockhart, redshirt freshman, got his. Max Clare, the transfer from Purdue, got his, as you would expect. And now we'll wait and see which of the freshmen is the first one out of that group to get it. Saturday is the Student Appreciation Day, which is actually a great day for the media to go and watch practice. So looking forward to it. Usually get to see a lot of good scrimmage situations that day, and should be a lot of fun to be there and be able to film some practice and talk to some people afterwards and different things, and usually a really good day.
Yeah, I'm just looking. Last year, the two freshmen that lost their black stripes were Jeremiah Smith and Julian Sayin. In 2023, it was Carnell Tate, Jelani Thurman, and Malik Hartford. And in 2022, it was Kai Stokes and Caden Curry. So
long forgotten Kai Stokes. Now, were those the only ones in those springs, or were those just the first ones?
Those were just the true freshmen.
But for the entire spring, they were the only freshmen that had it.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So it usually isn't more than 2 or 3 guys in a spring. I thought maybe it'd be 4 or 5, and then 4 or 5 more in the fall. But yeah.
So it's certainly not easy to do. And Jeremiah Smith was the fastest ever, and Julian Sayin was the fastest ever quarterback. So a pretty decent class last year. We'll see what this year's class can do.
Yeah. So I'm going to be the skeptic here. Not easy to do, but everyone gets it accomplished. When I say everyone, I mean everyone who is reasonably expected to get it accomplished does.
Well, generally, you're not going to play until the point where that happens. They're probably not even going to put you on special teams until you show you've reached an accomplishment level, effort-wise and accomplishment-wise within the program. So they're not even going to consider you to be on, a special teams. What will happen is they get into the season and some guys will start appearing in games, and then we never took his black stripe off. It dawns on them, and they have to retroactively do it after somebody has actually played a key part in a game. So yeah, but that's very rare for that to happen.
There must be a black stripe, black book somewhere.
Yeah, somebody's keeping track of it.
Yakov is keeping track of Julian Sayin, reminding him of Joe Montana.
Well, let's start at the top. Why not? I don't know. He won a lot of games.
He's not the biggest guy in the world. No. That's the comparison I'm going to draw.
Yeah, hoping to see some of what makes him special in this Student Appreciation Day practice and scrimmage on Saturday. That will be, I think what a lot of people are looking for is some magic there. So, let's see it. We've talked about it forever, and rubber is about to hit the road. So, you got to be able to deliver on a promise, and we'll see which guys do and which guys don't beginning Saturday.
Well, I'll just say this. If Julian Sayin is only as good as Joe Montana in college, Ohio State made a mistake. So, because I just, numbers are always generational or whatever. Like Joe Montana threw 25 touchdowns in his college career and threw 25 interceptions.
Ooh.
His first year as a starter, he threw for 1,604 yards with 11 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. His last year as a starter threw for 2,010 yards with 10 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Those are Greg Fry numbers, and those will not do at Ohio State.
No,
I don't think they're Greg Fry numbers.
No, the touchdowns are. Greg Fry was the first Ohio State quarterback to throw for over 2,000 yards in 3 seasons. But yeah, those are not great yards. At least he did rush for 100 yards, 104 yards, and 6 touchdowns in his final year. So
he had that Cotton Bowl. Was it against Houston where he had the flu and they gave him the chicken soup and that made him feel better?
They were down 34-10, I believe was the score in that one.
Were you
35-34.
cutting the video that day, Mark, for Sports Center on that one?
It's floating around there on YouTube. Absolutely. It's out there. Bill Walsh coached those interceptions out of him immediately.
Hey, if you only have to throw into the flats to Roger Craig, you're going to be okay. You throw some slants to Jerry Rice, you're going to be all right.
Okay. Those guys came around a few years later.
But
it was Earl Cooper and Dwight Clark. And
he was my I considered him the best quarterback of all time until about, I don't know, 2/3 through Tom Brady's career. Then it was like, okay. But yeah, as a Bears fan, I hated Joe Montana. And then I also hated Steve Young because he was also really damn good.
yeah, they played an NFC championship game up in Chicago that was not even close. And the cold was supposed to get to those San Francisco players, and it certainly didn't. It was like 10 degrees outside. I think the score of that game was 28-3. All right. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Keep in mind that if you can't watch us, you can listen to us. We provide all the audio for each one of these get-togethers with Steve and Tony, so you can get that on your favorite audio platform, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeart. We've tried to add all of them there, so please do that. Also, if you would like to sponsor yourself, your personal brand, your service, your products, whatever you've got, hit us up at sponsorships@VOCFB, sponsorships@VOCFB. Chris Henry's been committed since July of 2023. And again, being an out-of-state guy, this is always the fear, is hanging on to these guys for what would have to be 2.5 years to get to the finish line, December of 2025. The 5-star out of Santa Ana, but he's basically saying, I'm done with the speculation, people talking, I am not looking at anywhere else.
Well, it is interesting, and it is a great phenomenon, certainly, and everybody knows his story. His dad was Chris Henry, who played for the Cincinnati Bengals, and he was growing up in Cincinnati, and he's got some of his dad's former teammates like Pac-Man Jones and some other people kind of in his life, helping him, mentoring him. I don't know necessarily raising him, but mentoring him and trying to help him with his football career. And, you think Pac-Man Jones and you just wonder, well, is he a good influence or a bad influence? But in this case, it feels like he's been a pretty good influence on Chris so far. And I think Pac-Man is won over to the Ohio State side, no doubt. I think he understands in the pantheon of football what Ohio State means and what Brian Hartline can do for a wide receiver. So I think that everything looks good for Ohio State. And obviously, he's from Cincinnati originally. So, this is home for him, this part of the country. Went to California to play, at a good prep school and, continue his development. I know he got hurt at the end of this past season and is out. And that may explain why some of the networks have dropped his ranking a little bit because he's not out there doing the T-shirt and shorts circuit this offseason. But make no mistake, he's still a very good player. He just got to get healthy again. So, let's look at it. Again, the earliest he would sign would be December, I guess. So I guess, that's another 8 months. My goodness. Boy, this thing moves at a glacier pace, doesn't it? But he was committed as a sophomore or coming out of his freshman year, whatever it was, and saw what he wanted to see and got what he wanted to get from Ohio State. And certainly they're telling him, you can be the next Jeremiah Smith, certainly. So, that's got to be pretty exciting for him.
I heard they offered him a shoe deal.
Well, they may have to offer him a shoe company, given the fact the way these NIL deals are escalating. Kind of like the federal debt is the national debt is. You need a calculator to figure out how these NIL deals are going exponentially upward every 20 seconds. So
I will say, if he does end up decommitting, and people have said, like, you said you're going to shut it down, he's like, well, that was April 1st when I said that. So, you should never take that to heart. But I mean, he committed. Nothing has changed on his why he decided on Ohio State, and things have only been amplified by seeing the successes that continue from Marvin Harrison, just the recent stuff, not even the distant past of Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and Jackson Smith, just the recent history. There's no reason for Chris Henry to look elsewhere. And I think, Steve, were you there when he announced his commitment on the that July Friday at one of the last Friday Night Lights? It wasn't even Friday Night Lights. It was like just a Friday showcase in the summer.
No, I don't think I was there for that.
And so we were all hanging out at the WAC in the lobby, outside the lobby, waiting for players to come out and talk to them. And Chris Henry comes out, and Brian Hartline comes out, and Pac-Man Jones comes out, and they all kind of have these grins on. And Pac-Man's like, well, do you want to tell him? And we're all like, tell us what? Did you commit? He's like, yeah, I committed. And so, that was, as you said, 2023 or whatever. That was a long time ago. And
well, I hope you all applauded for the poor kid. I hope you all give me, yes, one of those. Sometimes you got to break kayfabe, and you gotta make the moment mean something.
I mean, hey, Brian Hartline was doing enough cheering for everybody, so that was one that they definitely wanted. And so I asked. So Ohio State got a commitment from a 5-star safety a couple days ago, Blaine Bradford, and I asked safeties coach Matt Guerrieri, so how do you keep an out-of-state commit locked in for the next 8 months? And he's like, it's all about relationships, and it's the relationships that you build and then you continue on. And this has been a relationship that has been building for years and just growing. So there's no reason. People that follow this will tell you, as long as Brian Hartline is at Ohio State, Chris Henry will be at Ohio State.
Good.
We are the voice of college football. We got a show each and every Monday through Friday, the college football show. That's over on the main channel. Give me a call. We take your calls every day. We've got a guest, Will Gunter from Columbia, South Carolina, radio fame, to talk about South Carolina and the SEC. We're going to look at some of the toughest non-conference schedules in the SEC today. So join us at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Steve, you glossed over this a while ago, and I'd like to circle back to who's going to put heat on the quarterback for this football team this year.
Yeah,
who are those guys going to be?
That's a tremendous question. And one of my friends who attended the scrimmage on Saturday was not impressed with the pass rush. And this kind of runs cyclical. When they've had a good offensive line, they've dominated in the spring against the defensive line. And last 2 years, when they've had a pretty good defensive line, they've dominated against the offensive line. And now the balance of power has kind of swung back the other way with the veterans in the middle on the offensive line and the tryouts that are going on right now at tackle. So obviously you've got Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson, who were the understudies for JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. And then you've got CJ Hicks, who's moved in from the linebacker position. And you got the Logan kid. What is his name? Logan
George.
Logan George comes in from the FCS ranks. And they're kind of the backups. I'm not aware right now that anybody else has really stepped up at those positions. Maybe a Josh Mickens or somebody else. But it's they've got to develop some depth there. And if they could find a pass rusher, or as Tony said in his answer in the chat, a defensive tackle that can help up front in the portal after spring ball's done, they may just go do that. So I feel like they've got the ability to go out and to still peruse the portal for what's out there at some key positions. And, defensive line may be one of them. I don't know. I guess we'll have to get a little deeper into this and again, get a feel for it on Saturday. If they're putting relentless pressure on the quarterback just with a 4-man rush, then you'd say, oh, things are pretty good. But again, I think the offensive line has worked its way up a little bit. And when the tackles are solidified, that it should be a pretty good unit.
Yeah, I think one of the things to keep in mind with the pass rush right now is half of the pass rush is still learning. CJ Hicks he's still learning the job and learning the nuances. And we see him every day after practice talking with Matt Patricia, and those two are always talking and working on stuff. And then he'll go off. CJ Hicks will go off and work with the defensive ends on some other things. And Logan George is coming in from not just the FCS. He's also coming into a completely different defense. He played in like a 3-3-5 stack, and as a defensive end in that, so much of his attacking was done almost against the guards, and sometimes the guard in the center or the guard in the tackle, where it's just a completely different thing than now doing some one-on-one pass rushing. So he's still getting the nuance of that as well. So this spring is it's a basic thing for the pass rush, and in terms of basic pass rushing, and then you add stuff to it. So I wouldn't get too concerned. I think the big concern, though, is still the relatively unproven nature of everybody that they have at defensive end right now in terms of production, because you've had Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau basically as a brick wall from getting anybody else on the field. So, I think Kenyatta Jackson had maybe 2.5 sacks or a sack and a half last year, and he's probably got 4 in his career, and Caden Curry has probably got like 5 in his career. So not a lot of production, and you're hoping that they'll all be good to go, especially those two guys as 4th-year guys, and CJ Hicks is a senior as well. Logan George is a 4th-year guy. So these are all 4th-year guys, but they've never been asked to do it 50 times in a game. So they're all still kind of learning, I think.
Our buddy David Greenshield had asked in the chat, and Tony responded about the transfer portal and what we might expect in terms of going to get a need filled after spring ball.
Yeah, I think defensive tackle is where it's at. And Ryan Day even didn't deny. He said they need to see more from the guys behind Caden McDonald and Edric Houston. So you're Jason Moore, your Will Smith, Eric Mensah, those guys that haven't really done anything yet, haven't done enough yet to Taiwan Malone to get, and this is Taiwan Malone, it's a 5th-year guy. They need him. So they need those guys to begin producing in terms of just being trustworthy, being consistent, and enough flashing. They've just got, the lights got to stay on. And I don't know that will happen this spring. So I do think they'll go looking. Now, can they find anything? Because everybody else is going to be looking too. That's the problem about trying to get a left tackle in the portal. So is everybody else. Trying to find a defensive tackle in the portal. So is everybody else. So it's got to be the right guy, and it's got to be somebody that wants to come to Ohio State, and somebody that isn't interested in just, the highest price, because that's not what Ohio State's going to give you.
Well, I think it's been pretty obvious from the 5 years that we've had this transfer portal that the first cycle in December has been the bigger cycle, both from quality and quantity standpoints. Although if you're just going to go out there and flash some money at someone and go grab somebody, then that's obviously possible as well.
Well, I mean, and everybody that goes in the winter, that's the big hunting season. That's where everybody just goes in, and all of the big names. The problem then is all of the agents can tell, hey, Ohio State's going to be looking for a tackle. We should think about going into the portal. And maybe that guy already went into the portal, and maybe he's only been with his new team for 4 months, and maybe he can't leave. But the agents will tell players what teams are looking for. So if they didn't go into the portal, and now they're well, if Ohio State's looking, or if Michigan is looking, or if Notre Dame, it's well, maybe I'll jump in, because there are so many back channels with agents right now that, and again, everything is legal because nothing is being stopped.
Correct.
We got Steve Helwagen here, of course, from Buckeyes 247 Sports, right next to me. Catch Steve's work there. Anything in particular, Steve, you've been working on?
Just covering spring football to the best of our ability, staying on top of that, and looking forward to Saturday. We'll have pictures and video, hopefully, up on our site Saturday from the Student Appreciation Day practice. And we appreciate the chance to get out there and see what's going on. And generally, they have about 500 to 1,000 students that show up. And it's a very enthusiastic day and to kind of connect the students to the team, which is nice. I mean, obviously in the fall, you need that support when you're talking about hosting teams like Texas and Penn State, and some of the big tough games that they're going to have. You want the students on board, obviously. So that'll be fun on Saturday. Just working on some odds and ends with basketball. Might do a transfer portal big board for basketball, which will be kind of interesting to see if they can land any top talent in the portal to try and get that program back up on its feet. But otherwise, just going to work every day. We got interviews again tomorrow. I think we get Coach Day, Coach Hartline, and Coach Patricia again on Monday for kind of a end of spring or getting down to the end of spring, re-up, and then obviously right out the week and have the spring game the following Saturday, April the 12th. I don't know. I haven't looked at my TV listings yet, but it doesn't feel to me like it's going to be on television. I haven't heard any announcement of that. And that is a terrible departure, I think, from years past for people that couldn't get to Ohio Stadium to at least see something, on that Saturday on Big Ten Network. I think they're missing a chance to promote the program by not doing that. But the prevailing wind in college football right now is don't show anybody anything, because then they'll come and try and buy your third string left tackle or something if they like him. So, yeah, it's a messy situation out there right now.
I just brought up because somebody asked me today, are they showing the spring game? I'm like, I don't know. The Big Ten Network says that they are. I just looked at the btn.com and went to April 12th at 12 p.m. and it says big spring football, Ohio State from 12 to 2.
Boom.
And you've seen Ryan Day over the last couple of weeks try to remove himself, remove the spring showcase thing, and keep telling people it's going to be a spring game because they do want people to show up and they do want people to buy tickets. And if you tell people it's a spring showcase, it's like, well, this does not, like what? And it's like, no, there's going to be a spring game. You should definitely come. It'll help. You'll love it. There's concessions. Won't be free concessions like Coastal Carolina this season, which is amazing. But, if you want a $6 water and a $6 hot dog and
$7 Geiger, all beef Geiger dog,
and also get to watch the Ohio State spring game, you can still do that this year.
I wasted about 20 minutes this morning looking for a Coastal Carolina shirt. I was trying to order it. It needs to be teal. All I could find were white and black. And the teal ones were either medium or they were extra large. I need a large. And I looked all over the place, and then I finally gave up. But I'm going to get myself a Coastal Carolina. I'm going to honor Coastal Carolina. They are my team this season. I love what they're doing. And at least the story that I read, the notes that I read, we're talking about not just one visit to the concession. These are unlimited visits to the concession stand for your nachos, your popcorn, your dog, and your fountain drink. That's got to be like a $20 deal right there.
They're going to run out of stuff.
You're going to see, Steve, how like the photographers in the media, they travel with their wagons, and the TV people travel with their wagons.
Yeah.
People can be taking their wagons to the concession and be like, give me 16 hot dogs, give me 14 hamburgers, give me 4 pretzels. And they're just going to throw it in their 55 tacos, 55 hot dogs, and they're going to throw them in their wagon and walk off.
I was at Red's opening day, and they have an all-you-can-eat section in the upper deck, and I bought this thing for $11. And I figured, well, hey, if I bought this thing for $11 with some pop in it, I'm entitled to go to the all-you-can-eat thing and get a refill. And I did, and no one said anything to me. So I consider that, pretty good.
What that announcement reminded me of is we would have a company picnic at the Worldwide Leader every year, and they would rent out the local amusement park, and so we'd have our run of the park and could ride whatever and do everything for free. Everything was free, food, everything.
Awesome.
And before I'd leave, I'd head up to the back of the park, and then I'd hit every concession stand. And by the time I'd hit the next concession stand and have to wait in line, my ice cream was done. I'd finish that ice cream so I could get like a pretzel, and I had it all worked out. I slightly maybe went a little crazy and took advantage of that situation.
Good heavens.
Yeah. So and then my next thought about the Coastal Carolina situation was they must be trying to draw some people to the game. They must have 8,000 or 10,000 empty seats. So we had our buddy Jackson, who's in the chat all the time. I said, what's the average attendance at Coastal Carolina? My guess was 20,000 a game. It was 21,415 in a stadium that seats 21,000. They sold out all their games. So I was thinking, oh, they're trying to fill up the other 8,000 or 10,000 seats, but I guess not. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's somewhere near Myrtle Beach. Is that right? Is it south of Myrtle Beach? Conway, south. It couldn't be north because north would be in North Carolina. But yeah, I think it's Conway, South Carolina, not far from Myrtle Beach. So funny story. I remember when they made I don't even know if they were in FBS yet or not, or still FCS, but they were making the change. And Penn State scheduled them, and Dave Jones, who was always one of Joe Paterno's antagonists, said, Joe, will there be a return game at Myrtle Beach? Whatever, just screwing with Joe. But
I am trying to figure out right now if we are blessed with Devin Sanchez's father, Daniel Sanchez, in the chat.
Yes.
We are.
Well, that's neat.
Thank you, sir. It's great to have you here. Thanks for joining. And Mr. Sanchez and everyone else, we do this every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Now, sometimes we got to move the schedule based on these two and their commitment to Ohio State football coverage, of course. But typically here at Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Great to see everyone here. And again, I will be available at 4 p.m. Eastern time to take your calls over on the main channel. We also have an Ole Miss show that we do every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and I'll be showing up for that one as well. And that's one of those schools that now you got hope to get to the playoff. Mm-hmm. So throw them into the mix.
Got to get there.
All right, guys, we appreciate it as always. We will hopefully make it on back next week.
Yep.
You guys have a great week, and we'll see everybody next time.
Yep. Take care.